Giraffes at risk with their striking coastal patterns and touring height. Giraffes are iconic African creatures, yet they haven't been the subject of much scientific study. Now researchers who tracked the animals report a disturbing trend. Across the continent, populations have dwindled from 140,000 to fewer than 8,000 over 80,000 over the past 15 years, according to the Giraffe Conservation Foundation, GCF. So moving and enormous. Giraffes offer an easy target and lots of meat. For poachers, particularly in the war-torn Democratic Republic of the Congo, says GCF Executive Director Julian Fantasy. Hares also are diminished by habitat loss and by hunters who cater to the superstition among some tribes that eating giraffe brains was by HIV. Still, says Fantasy, there is hope for the future. We wouldn't be doing this work if we thought it was too late. Catherine Zuckerman. The hunter felled this giraffe in Eastern Cape, South Africa in 2012. CUP provides hope for threatened species. In summer 2014, while tracking a rare Andean bear in Ecuador's Cayambe Coca National Park, scientists noticed that her activity centered on one area, a possible sign of nesting. They later found her cub. The animals, known also as spectacled bears for their facial markings, belong to the only wild bear species in South America. By some estimates, fewer than 3,000 now live in Ecuador. Ongoing observations of this cub will shape efforts to save the solitary vulnerable species and perhaps boost its numbers. Lindsay and Smith. Explore planet Earth by the numbers. Climate and birds. Climate change is threatening some of North America's most beloved birds. According to a recent Audubon Society report, by 2080, shifting temperatures could greatly reduce the habitat of 10 U.S. state birds. Since bird populations are indicators of ecosystem health, it's important to track their numbers to determine where conservation efforts are needed most. Bird watchers are helping by uploading as many as 8 million bird sightings every month to eBird, an online database with nearly 250 million records. Mark Reynolds of the Nature Conservancy says crowdsourcing is one tool for saving fleeting habitat. Kelsey Novakovsky. Declining habitats. Number of bird species at risk of losing half their habitat by 2080. 314. Climate change could affect more than half the 588 species in the Audubon report. 126 species endangered. 188 threatened. 274 unaffected. Conserving habitats in California. Millions of birds forage in wetlands while migrating along the route known as the Pacific Flyway. Wetlands once abundant in California have decreased, cultivated by farmers or drained by the ongoing drought. North America, area enlarged below. Pacific Flyway, South America, 1 billion. Birds migrate along the Pacific Flyway each year. Many breed in the high Arctic in summer. Some fly as far as the tip of South America to winter. Central Valley wetlands, a century ago 4 million acres. Today 250,000. Most of the lost wetlands are now farmed. Many rice farms are in the northern Central Valley where birds need wetlands. Central Valley, California, Pacific Flyway within California. Renting farms for temporary habitat. A new nature conservancy program says rice farmers in the northern Central Valley to flood their fields during peak migration times. These pop-up habitats are cheaper than setting aside and maintaining permanent refuges. More than 350 bird species use the Pacific Flyway each year. 1. Mine the data. Crowdsourced data on bird sightings and NASA satellite images are analyzed to determine where and when wetlands are most needed. 2. Rent the fields. Flooding rice fields in late winter can be risky. They might not dry out by planting time. Farmers are compensated accordingly. 3. Flood the fields. Fields are covered with a few inches of water for 2 to 8 weeks. Migrating birds feed and rest in the pop-up habitats. 4. Save the birds. The temporary wetlands hosted more than 50 species of shorebirds, waders, and waterfowl. 200,000 birds. In 2014, 9,600 acres of pop-up habitat were flooded in 2014. Bird population change by habitat. Percentages change 1968 to 2012. Ocean coast, minus 50%. Arid land, grassland. Eastern forest, western forest. Coast, winter. Wetland. Habitat loss by 2080. Modeling suggests that the species below will lose a significant amount of habitat. Conservation efforts have expanded habitats of winter coastal and wetlands species such as marlars. Loss 92%. Greater sage grows. Arid land 55%. Whippoorwill. Eastern forest 49%. Northern pygmy owl. Western forest 47%. Asparagus pipit. Grassland. Pacific golden plover. Ocean coast. Explore us. The dawn of Impressionism. At 7:35 a.m. on November 13, 1872, in the port city of Le Havre, France, the art world changed forever. Claude Monet gazed out his hotel window and began to paint what he saw. The result above was Impressions Soleil Levant, Impression Sunrise, and the birth of a movement. How do we know exactly when Impressionism began? Because of Donald Olson, a Texas State University astrophysicist who uses astronomy to solve art and literary mysteries. When art historian Geraldine Lefebvre and Marmottan Monet Museum Deputy Director Marianne Matthew asked Orson to help determine the painting's provenance. The self-styled celestial sleuth began by poring over maps and photos to identify Monet's hotel and room. Then he turned to astronomy, using the rising sun and the moon to determine the tide, season, and time of day, and consulted digitized 19th century weather observations. The final clues were the smoke plumes in the painting, showing the wind blowing east to west. Those findings plus the 72 by Monet's signature. Closed the case and put a precise time stamp on a timeless work of art. Jeremy Bellin.